Welcome to the FCC and the Art of Politics show that is being aired and shown on July 3rd between July 1, the handover day of Hong Kong, and 4th of July, Independence Day.
This month, we are incredibly proud to present The Art of Politics on the Hugh Van Ness wall. Peter, here to my right, is an author and a publisher, of course, but he also has one of the most diverse CVs I've ever seen in my life. Let me see if I can get this right here, Peter. Lawyer, banker, music promoter, political advisor, environmental activist, cowboy, I believe, and the founder also of Pets Central, leading network of animal hospitals in Hong Kong. Mark, his partner in crime, his collaborator, is a creative artist who also has a diverse array of talents, being an illustrator, photographer, portrait painter, and of course, an accomplished book cover artist. Now, to talk a little bit more about their work, please join me in welcoming to the microphone Mr. Peter de Krassel.
Thank you, Lee, for that kind introduction. And the question I'm usually asked about Custom Maid is it a typo? How come you spelled Custom Maid M-A-I-D? And I go, it's very simple. We the people are maids. We're constantly cleaning up the mess career politicians make, and then we're dumb enough to pay for the mess they clean up. And let me ask anyone here, you all have maids in Hong Kong. Is there anyone here who has a maid who pays them for the privilege of cleaning up their mess? No, right? So how come we the people constantly do that? There was one question that always bugged me. How come we're always told not to talk about politics, religion, and sex? And I figured, as a political activist, it just didn't sit right. There's a spin there that I don't quite get, so I decided to delve into it. And the conclusion I reached is that politicians, religious leaders, are very hypocritical about their lives and sex, which has all come out since then, thanks to social media. But back then, it was a hard thing to grasp. So that's the idea of spin. So spin in English over here and spin in Chinese over there are the bookends of the political journey I'm going to walk you through real quick. Custom Made Spin in Chinese was published by the Huanwei publishing group that's part of the Shanghai group, and the book is still available in Chinese in China. Hugh Van Ness, my sponsor to the FCC, Hugh Van Ness wall is named, is one of the most famous Vietnamese war photographers, and to whom my book Feasting Dragons, Starving Eagle is dedicated to. This is Backspin, the book about the insurrection on January 6th, and why a lot of these people, including the shaman, were homeless. And homeless is one of the big issues I discuss with the other book I have here called Custom Maid Housing for the New World Disorder. This is one of the blogs I wrote that is about Trump, and I just basically in that blog said he should stop tweeting his lies. This is the Hugh Van Ness wall, which this whole gallery is dedicated to Hugh Van Ness. You saw the widow, she was at the reception, Annie, and this was the invitation sent to all the media. This is Custom Made Knowledge, the book about why America was being dumbed down by the Bush administration while China was rising and educating its people, which is why the cover is the statue in scaffolding with Mao rising. But part of the fake news of over there is part of the fake news that Facebook brought out that also led to the insurrection on the Capitol, which is the cover of Backspin there. Housing is the upcoming book, Custom Made Housing, and why housing is a global crisis, not only in Hong Kong, US and China, but the world, and the underlying reason for protests, not only in Hong Kong, the US, as I pointed out, the guys at the insurrection, homeless. This, the China Peace Table, is about why China can be the peace negotiator with the US to end the Russian-Ukrainian war and the North Korean-South Korean conflict. Only China and the US can end both wars, because we cannot forget North Korea is still at war technically. They have not signed a peace treaty. That book, Feasting Dragon, Starving Eagle, is the book that's dedicated to Hugh Van Ness, and it talks about why America became China's cheap buffet because of how I mentioned in knowledge, and while America was being dumbed down, China was being educated. Human capital is the most important capital, education. This blog is about racism in America, about why George Floyd, the death of George Floyd, and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. This one, Kung Flu, was about the racism comments that the Trump administration was saying about Chinese and Asians, about Kung Flu, that they were being blamed for COVID, and both were very racist comments. This, on the other hand, was Trump when he lost the election, leaving office, was pardoning all his buddies who were thrown in jail. So it was all about get out of jail free. This was, again, going back to the insurrection January 6th, where he was stabbing the vice president in the back because he would not agree with him that Trump had lost the election. Trump insisted he had lost the election and it was stolen. And that led to Trump trying to steal the election and the country. And RBG, the justice of the Supreme Court, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, was the preeminent justice who spoke out for injustices because she was a woman who was subjected to discrimination and fought for the rights of all people who were discriminated against, be they women, blacks, gays, Asians, whatever. And as a lawyer, it was somebody I respected the most. This is about Bert's, the club downstairs in the FCC, a jazz club, where the last chapter of Backspin was taken, and where I was at, actually, when I wrote Spin, because I had just been released from jail here in Hong Kong on a subject we don't discuss. That's why the butterflies in jazz, and it was a pleasure to be there. That one is Custom Made War, as I mentioned, after Custom Made Spin, the English version over there that said it was going to be America that was going to be shocked and awed. And I was basically told, who the fuck are you to say what you're saying, because everyone was so patriotic in America, and I was told to basically stay in communist China. So that's when I wrote Custom Made War, pointing out why America is not only going to lose in Iraq, but Afghanistan, because nobody has won in Afghanistan. And more importantly, talked about cyber wars and future wars, all of which are happening today. And that was a book that came out in 2005. And that is the original spin, the first book that started it all about fake news. And as I talked about, what got me into exploring as a political scientist and political activist, why is it that we're always told not to discuss politics, religion, and sex? And back then in 2003, or when I started writing the book earlier, it was because political and religious leaders and their hypocrisy and sexual practices did not want to be disclosed, which have since been disclosed because of social media. And that is the book where I talked about it was America was going to get shocked and awed in Iraq, and I was told all the nasty accusations that led me to write Custom Maid War. So I want to thank you all for coming, but most importantly, I want to thank Pauline Taylor, the love of my life, who has put up with all my crazy writing habits and the mess around the house. And the book Custom Maid Housing is coming out in July 18. There's a booth at the book fair that I will be at, that you're all welcome, and hopefully I'll have a talk on the book here. In the meantime, enjoy the drinks, the food, and if anyone would like to ask any questions off the record or on the record, happy to answer them. And again, thank you all for coming.